Hi everybody, welcome back to the Sewcialites 3 Sew Along. Today we're going to be working on block number 3. It's called Cabin Life, designed by Robin Pickens. I'll be making the 9-inch block today. What we have is a log cabin center and then they turn it into a house. This one might pose a bit of difficulty for me when I pull fabrics because I'm working with red, brown, pink, and cream. And you can see all the different variety of colors here. So as I'm pulling my fabrics, I need to be careful about what's laying next to what so I don't accidentally end up with a bunch of cream over here or a bunch of red over here. When you go to pull your fabrics, it might help to mark up the rest of this diagram. Part here with the chimney is C, G, and C, so the light color is C. G is the chimney. Over here you've got two H's in the center. This blue here is F. This B here is the same as the B over here. The bottom blue piece here is an E, and this pink piece over here is a G. What I did was started pulling fabrics and then making notes what I wanted to use where. I laid everything out. I'm going to cut everything, lay it out on the design board. We'll have a look at it and then we'll sew our block together. Here's everything cut and laid out. The only thing I'm wondering about is if this is going to look good once it's sewn in the block. This red over here is a pretty heavy red, and I've got a heavier red here, and then this is kind of like a so-so pink on the side. I think I'm going to swap that out for a red. I'm afraid the block is going to look too heavy on this side and then sort of fade. So even though I spent the time to fussy cut this, I'm going to pull that out and I'm going to go pick a red to help balance out the colors. I found this red print. What I'm going to do is fussy cut the dark part. That's much better. Now we've got red here, red in the center. We've got the pink, the stripes on top, pink and red here. Everything looks a little more balanced out. Let's head over to the Featherweight and put this block together. We're going to be sewing on a 1955 Singer Featherweight today. My thread color is Aurifil 2000. Let's go ahead and turn this on and get started. I'm going to do the block assembly in order according to the instructions. We're going to start by sewing our fabric C's to our fabric G, and then we'll press these to the dark side. This is our upper chimney that's going next to the top of the roof. I have a 1/4 inch guide foot on my machine. Some simple straight sewing today. I think I'll try to do this without pins if I can. We'll line everything up. Go ahead and start putting this together. Now you might have seen me pull this out and rearrange it. That's because I didn't have it lined up correctly. You can see right there, I was not stitching that correctly. I'm going to go press this on my ironing board and set it aside and make sure when I put it back on my design board, I set it that way with the leaves pointing up. The next two fabrics we're working with are our fabric A square and our fabric D rectangle. And it has us drawing a line on the back of fabric A. I'm going to take this over to my table and flip it over and draw a line from corner to corner. We've done that before. I've got the line drawn. One thing to think about is which half of your triangle you want to show. You can look at that before you draw your line. If I lay it down like this, we're going to sew, and then that's going to get cut off, and it's going to flip, and I'm going to see the flowers. I like that. Now if I throw it the other direction and sew, the flowers get cut off and I get a big brown leaf. I kind of like it the other way. I want to see some of the flowers. I'm going to line that up. I went ahead and grabbed some pins. We take all the time to starch and press our fabrics. I should pin more often. And since this part's going to be cut off, I'm not worried about putting holes in the fabric. And I grabbed the bent pin again. Obviously, I haven't gotten rid of all the bent pins. A lot of my pins are bent. What can I say? Now we're ready to sew right on that line. I have the guide foot. I really should remove the guide foot. I'm not going to. I'm kind of in a hurry today. Let's see if I can sew with the guide foot. Normally you don't want to do that because you don't want to mess with this guide. We take the pins out. We're going to trim a 1/4 inch away from that line. And we've done this before. We made half square triangles already. And then flip and press. And you'll want to press toward the darker fabric. Here's what that looks like. Now we have to do the same thing with the chimney unit. We're going to draw a diagonal line across the back and place it and make the triangle. You've got to pay attention to how you're placing this. When you look at the picture, it's like this, which makes sense because if you lay it down like that and you sew corner to corner, then you're going to flip and your chimney will be right side up. You don't want to accidentally place it like this. What's going to happen is you would stitch corner to corner, trim, and you flip and, well, you can tell that's not quite right. So make sure you have the right placement. And if your chimney is directional like mine, I want it to stand this direction with the leaves going up. So I need to take a minute and look at it. Right now the leaves are pointing to the left. I'm going to fold it. That's correct. Now everything is up. So I need to draw a line from this corner to this corner. And before I even take it over to the table, I'm actually going to put a pin here just to remind myself that when I pin this down, it's going to go this way. Let's go ahead and change the foot for this one. Because we've got seams on this, I don't want to try and force that underneath that guide foot. It's really not hard to change the feet on this machine. The little thumb screw comes out. You don't even need a screwdriver. Now we're all set. Here's my pin, so I know that's going in the top corner. Line everything up, pin, and then we're going to sew along the line we just drew. Here's our little roof unit. It came out great. We're going to set this aside, and we're going to start in the center of our block. You've got your 2 center squares. Put them together, stitch the seam, and then press toward whichever one is darker. Mine is the red, so I'll press to the red. Once you have your 2 center squares sewn together, you want to grab your fabric G. That's going to go underneath, and you're going to sew those together, and then I'm going to pin and sew. You want to try to do the best that you can to keep the center part of this block accurate because we're building out, and if the center is crooked, the whole block's going to be crooked. That's all stitched together. I want to go ahead and press that toward fabric G, and then I'm going to take it over to my cutting table and I'm going to double check my measurements. For the 9-inch block, it says this should be a 3.5-inch square. I measured it. We're good at 3.5 inches. The next piece of fabric is fabric G on the left, all pinned and ready to sew. It says to press this toward G, and then we're going to attach fabric F, and after we attach fabric F and press it out, you should have a 5-inch square. I have that nice and pressed. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a little bit extra time, line it up, pin it, and then sew. That's sewn on. I'm going to press it, and we want to press up toward piece F, and I'm going to double check my measurements and make sure I have a 5-inch square. I had the tiniest little bit to cut off on that side, so I took care of that. We're at 5 inches square. We're going to sew on our fabric F next on this side, and then we'll press, and you press out toward fabric F, and then you'll put your fabric E at the bottom, and it tells us to press out toward fabric E, and at that point it should be 6.5 inches square. So we'll sew these on, press them, and double check our measurements. To press this down toward E and then go make sure that this is 6.5 inches square. What's interesting about this piece that's a little bit longer, this is 6.5. So when I go to put on the next piece, which is another E, I want to go off of this piece and then make sure it goes straight up like that. So we've got our E. For me, it's the red. When I pin this, I want to make sure that I pin it to line up with this seam here, because even though it doesn't line up here, this is my 6.5. So I need to take a little extra time and pin it. It's probably going to look a little bit like that. You see how it lines up right here? And then I can see that fabric E right there. That's correct though. This part here is a little short. Here's what that looks like pinned. So everything lines up with this piece right here. Going to go ahead and sew this on. This is fabric E, that's my red fabric, and then we're going to press out toward fabric E. Once you have that on, you can press that out toward fabric E, and it tells you it should be 6.5 by 8. So you have another opportunity to double check the measurement of your piece. I measured this, and the 8 was good. The 6.5 was a little off. This is 6.5, and then from here to here, I'm a smidge short. So I put pins in here because this is going to be where the roof attaches. So I want to make sure to line it up along this line. The next pieces we're going to add are the two side pieces. Fabric B on this side and on this side, and then it says to press them out toward fabric B. Before I even press this, I can tell this is going to be really helpful. Do you see the light coming through the back? This piece is taller than this piece, and this was where it was short. So now when I go to press it, it'll be easier to line up that top piece. I'm going to go ahead and pull out the pin, and I'll double check my measurements. It says after you add these two side pieces, this should measure 6.5 by 9.5. Now it does tell us to press out toward this piece, but since I have such a dark red and I've got this light fabric, I'm going to press in toward the dark. I went and measured this. This piece of fabric here that stands a little bit taller is correct. So now when I go to attach the roof, I can line it up here and pin, and line it up with this spot and pin, and this part that's short will just get taken care of in the seam allowance. So your last step is to put your roof on your house. So when I pin this, I'm going to make sure to pin here and then here on the other side like that. Probably overdid it with the pins, but that's okay. The first thing I did was pin both corners, and then I made sure that these were straight on the sides and added a couple of pins there just to hold it. And then I had to flip it to the back to make sure that I was doing that correctly. See the roof fabric right there above the polka dot? That's what I wanted to see. So over here, you don't see it, you don't see it. Here's where it starts to go short, and you see it, and then it goes back up to the size it needs to be. I think that came out okay. We want to make sure we take out those extra pins on the side. We need to press that, and we're pressing it up toward the top roof fabric, and then we'll take this over to the table and we'll see if we got a 9.5 inch square block. I just thought I would show this. My block is underneath 3 clappers. I want to make sure it's nice and flat before I measure it. Let's have a look at our block. It's really cute. I was really worried about it because I didn't have a lot of colors. Very glad I went with the darker red over here. That other color that I first had that had a little bit of the pale beige on either side would have completely washed out this half of the block. Got a nice balance of pinks and reds and browns. I brought over my 10-inch square ruler. It's got a nice 9.5 inch mark. We'll line that up across the top. My block's a little small. Let me stand on my tippy toes, make sure I have that lined up correctly. Yeah, it's just a short block, and sometimes that happens. So I'll make a note and put it with this block. Block is a little bit small, and put it away with the rest of them. That way I know to be careful when I go to put this in the quilt. Let's pull our other blocks for fun. Here's block 1, which has a clip on it, which means that that's short. And then block 2 and block 3. This is going to make a really pretty quilt. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to do the official layout that they have for Sewcialites or if I'm going to do something different. I'll decide that as we get closer to the end. Thank you for stitching up block number 3 of Sewcialites 3 with me. Please be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends. Any questions or comments, please leave them below the video for me. All of my fabric information and all the links to the Sewcialites quilt along will be linked below. I'm also sewing along with the Quilted Farm Girl. I've got the blocks for March all cut and ready to go. That video is going to be coming up soon if you're waiting for that. Thank you for your patience. I'm working on a lot of things all at the same time. I will see you next week for the next block for Sewcialites 3. See you next time.